everyone. Today we're going to be talking about data analysis and statistical reasoning. And basically what that is when you have some kind of group of data and how you group it or how you demonstrate its aspects or components. And there's a few ways to do this. The ways that we're going to examine today are through graphs. And the problem that we're going to look at is appropriate for, well, the first way that we're going to demonstrate it with a bar graph could be appropriate for, I would say, first grade and older. And then the second way we're going to demonstrate it is with a box plot, which I would say is appropriate for about 5th grade or 6th grade. So the problem that we have today says, what is Miss Smith's class favorite number from 1 to 5? And so the students were asked, what's their favorite number from 1 to 5? And the student answers, which is our data, says 4, 1, 2, 5, 2, 3. It basically has a list of what each student's favorite number was. And as you can see, there are, how much is it? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 students. So we have 11 pieces of data. So the first kind of way that we're going to organize our data is in a bar graph. And a bar graph basically, the title basically explains what it is. However, the way we make a bar graph is we first make our x and y axis. So this is the x axis here. It runs horizontally. And then this is our y axis, which runs vertically. So on our x axis, we're going to be putting whatever it is that we're measuring. So today we're going to be measuring numbers. So that's going to be our categories, is the numbers. And basically you're going to examine, okay, what are my categories, which today is numbers 1 through 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are going to be your categories because students are placing their data into those specific 5 categories. Those are their only choices. So the way we're going to organize that is we'll make one category for 1, one category for 2, one category for 3, one category for 4, and one category for 5. So the way this data is going to look is we'll be making kind of bar-shaped or rectangle-shaped objects. And bar graphs are really great for comparing amounts or comparing, how much this category has compared to that category. So how many, like in this case, it would be comparing how many students like the number 1 compared to how many students like the number 2. So that's just a little insight into what we're going to be looking at and why this graph is a good idea. So for x-axis, we want to label it and just so that we know what we're looking at exactly. If somebody looks at our graph, they can see what they're looking at. So our x-axis, like we said, is our category. So which is their favorite number? So we could label this as favorite number. And now our y-axis is going to identify how many students said that this was their favorite number. So how many students exactly said 1 was their favorite number? How many students said 2, 3, 4, and 5? So we said we have 11 students, so our graph should go up to 11 at least. We want to start at 0. And then I like to kind of just make points so that I can reference to. So I'm going to make a point here saying 5, 10, and 11, just so that way I can reference when I'm putting in the numbers. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then so it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you don't have to write in all of the numbers. I just like to so I can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so then we can also come up with a title for our graph so that way if somebody looks at our graph, they'll know exactly what we're talking about. So our title for this graph could be, we could say Smith's class favorite number. That way somebody looks at the graph, they can see, okay, well, I have a general idea of what's going on. All right, so the way we'll start this is we'll look at number 1. How many students said that they liked number 1? Well, let's right here and let's look. 1, 2. We have 2 number 1s, so we are going to make a bar going up to number 2. Now, how many students said they like the number 2? Let's look through our data. We have 1, 2, 3. So 3 students. Let's go up to the number 3. I'm sorry, these bars aren't exactly straight. This is hand drawn, so it might be a little crooked. And how many students like number 3? Well, we have 1, 2, 3. So let's go up to number 3. How many students like number 4? Only 1 student liked number 4, so we just go right up to where 1 is. And you just kind of, can guesstimate where. And how many students like 5? We only have 1, 2 students that like 5. So let's go to 2. So that's our graph. This is a representation of how many students like each amount. And if you want to help for visuals, you could always draw in here, exactly, try to match it up to the line, so that way it's easier to see. You know exactly how many students liked each one. That's 1, this is 2. So that way you can see 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, it's kind of clear. So this is just one way of demonstrating how to organize information such as this. And this basically just shows you, it helps you compare quantities, and it's easy to see, okay, well, there was a tie. The class liked number 2 and number 3 the best. So it's just one way to organize data. Now the next way we're going to go over is a little bit more complicated and is meant more for older grades, such as 5th grade or 6th grade. It can seem a little complicated and a little intimidating when you first look at it. However, once you practice with it and you're familiar with it, it's pretty simple. So the next one that we're going to be looking at is a box plot, and I actually have a diagram drawn out already. So in a box plot, you have all of your data laid out from lowest amount to the highest amount, which is something we didn't do with these. So you lay out your data from lowest amount to highest amount, and then you're going to find the median of all the data, which is when you just cross off numbers on the edge until you find that middle number. And then that's called quartile 2. And then you're going to find your quartile 1 and quartile 3. Sorry, that's mislabeled as 2. And it should be 3. And the way that you find quartile 1 would be you go from your lowest point, your lowest number, to your median. And then you take those numbers and you find the median of those, which will be lower quartile. And you do the same thing with the upper quartile. You go from your median to your highest point and you find the middle number there. And that's your upper quartile. So it's pretty simple, it just can seem a little complicated and confusing when students first look at it. So it's definitely important to break it down simply. It definitely shows the different demographics of the problem. It helps to break it down by, what's the median of the whole thing, and then what's the median of this part, and then this part. And it helps to see, okay, this was the lowest observation, this was the highest observation. It's very detailed, it goes into detail in the data. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to organize this information into in order. So that way it'll be easier for us to plot it on our graph. So our lowest number is 1. We have 2 1s. So we will write both of those down. We have 3 2s. We also have 3 3s. We have 1 4 and 2 5s. So this is our information. So the first step to our box plot is to draw out our number line. And it's not on this demonstration, but usually what you'll have is you'll have a number line underneath it. However, I wasn't able to put it in because I had to label. But you have a number line underneath it that just lets you know exactly what these points are. So it'll label, okay, this point is 4 or whatever it may be. So it's easy to read. So we're going to create a number line first. So our number line will be towards the bottom. And so the first point of our box plot, if we're referring back to the paper, is our lowest observation, which is number 1. Our highest observation is 5, because the students only had choices 1 through 5 to choose from. And then if you want, you can then you can go ahead and label the rest of it. So this could be 3, this could be 2, and that could be 4. So now your next thing to do is to draw another line that's equivalent to that line, right above it. And then this is where our box plot's going to go. So our next step is to find the median of these numbers. And the way that I usually do that, once it's in order, we are going to go from the outsides and find the middle number that's the median. So I like to start on the outside and just block off that number. So block off those, to those, to those. Make sure you're always going one at a time on each side. And that's 3. So our median number, that will be our Q2. So right here we'll label that. We can just put a line for right now. That's our Q2. We know that 3 is Q2. Now we want to find our Q1 and our Q3, which, like we said, are the median of all the numbers to the left of the main median and to the right. So here we're going to take these numbers, we'll go like this, until we find that one number left. So that's Q1. And we do the same thing on this side. 4, which is Q3. So now we just label those. So our Q1 was 2. Let's put a line right above 2. And then our Q3 was 4. Now just to make our box, it's really simple. All we do is just draw our line across. That connects those. Sorry, these lines aren't exactly straight. But there you go, there you have it. And if you want, you could always draw a line down to it to show exactly what numbers, or else you could write the numbers right underneath it. Whatever, visually for you is the clearest. So box plots, like I said, are really good for showing detail of the data. So just to review quickly, we looked at a bar graph, which helps to compare amounts with each other. It's easy to see, okay, well, which one had the most of this, or which one was the highest amount of this, or the favorite amount of this. And then box plots are really great for showing that detail of the medians and the data. Okay, thank you.